frustrated. Yeah, well, at least we know we're live. All right, so a little bit about this week. Since I don't have any viewers yet, I'll just talk about how my week's going. You guys can fill me in with how your week is going. We could talk about things, you know. It's been a rough week, guys. Quarantine is no fun for anyone. Not me, not you, not anyone. Most of all, well, not most of all, but I guess it kind of, yes, I am live, Len, thank you. It kind of prohibits the ability for us to talk about the NWA. There hasn't been a lot of content coming out. Of course, the NWA is doing their best, and nobody faults them in this time. But there's just a lack of content being created. There's not a lot of things to talk about. Now, I know today that the National Wrestling Alliance is going into that Paul Boesch library to present an episode, uncut, the original airing of an episode of that Houston library. They're even going to have those commercials from the late 70s, early 80s, so that should be interesting as well. But I'll be honest, I'm kind of in a rut myself. I'm a little bummed out because one, I had a couple of good things in the works that I was hoping that would pan out, and they just haven't worked out the way that I wanted to yet. But forever we will persist, and just like everyone else, we will get through this. And hopefully sooner than later we'll get wrestling back. And but until then, we'll just kind of play this thing by ear. I was kind of thinking about putting a pause on the pre-party because there is no power. But I have a lot of fun doing this, guys. I hope you guys have a lot of fun watching it. So we'll keep trying to produce something. Len is here on the channel, and Len and and Lamb have actually been discussing doing a Zoom episode of maybe pre-party, or maybe we'll just do an after show, or I don't know. I'm still trying to work out the details of doing a Zoom chat and talking NWA with you guys. So it's not just me doing the talking, that you guys could actually be a part of the program, part of the festivities, part of the interaction. And I think that would be something unique and something special and something fun. And sorry for the noises. We are in the garage, and I do have a tankless water heater that pops and crackles and makes all kinds of fun sounds when someone's using hot water. But yeah, the NWA again today is going to have the air an episode featuring the likes of Máscaras, Andre the Giant, and it is featured in that Paul Boesch library. Now, a lot of people are confused. Paul Boesch wasn't 100% NWA all the time. In fact, there was a point in time where he was no longer associated with the NWA, but continued to use the talents that were made famous by the National Wrestling Alliance. So tonight's episode, it might not even have NWA talent on the show, but it'll still be fun to take a look at, however it goes. We are dual streaming. We are on YouTube, that you guys are watching here. We're on Instagram, you guys are watching here. Ray's has joined the show. Ray's is for you guys who don't know, she's a wrestler out of Southern California, out of the Badlands of Santa Paula, Ventura, and she's pretty awesome. And I would make the case that she absolutely belongs in the National Wrestling Alliance, but nobody's wrestling right now anyway, so that's kind of a moot point. Let's see. So some of your comments already. Hey Lamb, how you doing? Len says, I was hoping for the commercials. I think the commercials will be interesting. It'll kind of be a look back in time to see how TV was back then. Lamb says, do you know anything about this episode today? Heard of this old episode for the first time. Lamb, I believe this episode is going to come directly from that Paul Boesch library with zero to no editing. I mean, this is what aired on TV for Paul Boesch back in Houston all those years ago. Um, Outside of knowing that Andre the Giant is supposed to be on the show and Mil Máscaras, I really don't know much more about it. And Terry McDermott says, I lived near Houston in the 70s. Boesch has a mega event long before WrestleMania. Yeah, Paul Boesch was way ahead of his time. I would like to argue that out here in Southern California, we had a group of promoters, the LaBelles, who did a lot of great things at the time. I mean, the Battle Royal in Los Angeles every year was one of those big things, and Ernie Ladd or Andre the Giant were always kind of pigeonholed to win that thing, and it was always created a lot of excitement. But the difference between Paul Boesch and the LaBelles is that Boesch had the foresight to keep those tapes, and who knows, maybe he was a pack rat, maybe he just liked to maybe he had the foresight to know that there would be some value in those tapes much later, because of the sign of the times back then was people would literally just take those tapes, record an episode, send it to distribution. When it came back, record over those tapes, because back then those tapes were very expensive. So you don't see a lot out of Los Angeles, and Paul Boesch's library was supposed to be in pretty good condition. Now we know the old NWA, prior to Lightning One, International Wrestling Corporation, started to try to digitize that library. I don't know how far they got. I don't think anybody really knows, but that was the premise of the old NWA streaming service that they had. And unfortunately, it just not a whole lot came from that. I know that they were trying to rival the WWE network. That Paul Boesch library has a lot of hidden gems. There's a lot of great matches. I'm not sure what we're going to see tonight, but I know that it's going to be some quality wrestling. And I think more so than anything, the nostalgia, the commercials, the old promos, I think that's going to be very interesting to see. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. Len says there's commercials on the TBS NWA shows on YouTube. Love seeing it in its entirety. Yeah, I mean, look, we all grew up at some point in the era of commercials. Not many of us were, children of 2000s where we could fast forward with a TiVo, right, or some sort of DVR. So being able to see the nostalgia associated with it. I mean, I can't think of Atlanta Braves baseball without thinking of Turner Sports and WCW, and how many times I'd get so miffed off because Braves baseball would supersede, Saturday night, so I would miss my favorite shows. Len says, I think Harley Race was listed for the show too. If that's the case, it might even be the Harley Race versus Andre match, which would be pretty cool. If you guys don't know, before Andre getting slammed by Hulk Hogan was a bit of a work. A lot of people were like, oh, Andre's never been body slammed, but Andre got slammed quite a bit. Harley Race was one of the guys to slam him. Stan Hansen was one of the guys to slam him. Long before Hogan. So, and to be fair, Andre was a lot bigger towards the end of his career. I mean, there was a point in time where he could do drop kicks and jump off the top rope. So for Andre to be body slammed late in his career, I mean, you could give that to Hogan, but guys like Harley and, like I said, Stan Hansen had body slammed him sooner. Big Chris on Instagram says, I'd even would love to see the tourney where Pierce won his first NWA title. Yeah, I don't know how much footage of that actually exists, Chris. I mean, that's part of the reason why they never released it, is the quality of the film was just not that very good. Just not very good. I mean, I know that there was a few matches taped by the people who became Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, and I know that there were other promotions like NECW that filmed the Fergal Devitt versus Mikey Nichols match. I think Fergal Devitt and Daniel Bryan, I think that happened in Canada, I think. But yeah, I don't think that footage really exists the way that we want it to. And it's just it's not that Reclaiming the Gold was such a big project for its time, and when you compare it to the 7 Levels of Hate, which happened almost 6-8 years later. The 7 Levels of Hate seemed to work so well, even though it was shot by many different wrestling promotions, shot by many different cameramen. I think if the times were a little bit more current, a tournament like that, Reclaiming the Glory, could have totally happened today. I mean, geez Louise, my cell phone right now is recording in high definition, 1080 DP, DP? 1080 HD. So, DDP, bang. But needless to say, that footage, the way it exists today, I don't think there's a whole lot of it. And you could probably go to some of those promotional sites, like the NECW YouTube channel, maybe track down the match that they had there, and maybe track down the ECCW match. But for the most part, I don't think you're going to have a lot of luck. Terry says, I remember at one show Boesch had James J. Dillon, Lord Alfred Hayes, Red Bastion, and Gino Hernandez. Yeah, so here I'm going to go on my little tirade about Gino Hernandez. I was in a NWA chat forum on Facebook. I don't even know what to call it. An NWA Facebook page. And they were talking about how great a heel Tully Blanchard was. And I give all the respect in the world to Tully Blanchard. He was a great heel. Ric Flair was a great heel. And I think it's a shame that Gino Hernandez isn't spoken about in the same vein as Ric Flair, as Tully Blanchard, as Arn Anderson. And I honestly believe if Gino Hernandez did not succumb to his demons, that we would be talking about Gino Hernandez in the same way that we talk about Ric Flair, in the same way we talk about Tully Blanchard. You look at the landscape of professional wrestling back in the early 80s, McMahon was trying to lure away the Von Erichs. He was trying to lure away Magnum TA. He was successful in luring away Hulk Hogan from the AWA. He was efforting to get Dusty Rhodes. He was really trying to bring all of the names into the WWE, even we're talking like 30 years ago, 35 years ago. And had Gino been able to fight those demons and stay clean, I think Gino would have been one of those guys that I think the WWE would have gotten to. And not probably the best place to be for his addictions, but maybe the best place to have showcased him. I don't think Flair would ever allow the spotlight to be taken away from him for too long working in Jim Crockett Promotions, WCW. But I do believe that had Gino not, again, succumbed to his demons, I think you'd see him in a different place and perhaps maybe being talked about as one of the best heels in professional wrestling. Glenn says, Bob or Bill might have some tapes of it. Wildside was on TV for a long time. Len, I don't believe that Bill or Bob, well, I'll say this. I don't believe they shot, the only matches that they shot in Anarchy for the Reclaiming the Glory was Damian Wayne versus Chad Parham. And I think that was just the one match, and Damian Wayne went over on that one. But outside of that, I don't think there was any other connection. Bob could possibly have the footage, but, again, if it was quality, they would have released it then. The NWA has always been looking for revenue streams, and as any business, right? Any business is in need of money, so of course, I think if they had something that they could have sold or released, I think they would have. I think Ray's left. Maybe she came back. So, besides for tonight's episode, and I am kind of excited about this. This is something I've never seen before. I didn't grow up in Houston. I didn't grow up a fan of the Paul Boesch wrestling promotion. But we're going to see some things that we haven't seen in quite some time. And I think that's pretty cool. And I do know, I do know the NWA is efforting to put together content. It's a shame. I really felt like NWA Power was Rays, you are here. Awesome. I know that the NWA was efforting to continue to produce content, and they were kind of hitting a stride there right before the last pay-per-view, and then it seemed like things slowed down. They were stretching out that library again to last till the Crockett Cup, and obviously, with a pandemic looming, the wheels kind of fell off. So it's a shame. But I think maybe this break will be good for the NWA. They could restructure some things. They know what's been working. They know what's not been working. As all wrestling promotions right now, I think the best thing that they can do with the time that they have is game planning and start working about long-term storylines, long-term angles. The one thing I did hear that I'm really happy to hear is that a lot of the NWA talent is still being taken care of. So even during this unfortunate set of circumstances, the NWA is still taking care of its wrestlers. So let's see. Len says Gary Hart's book gives you a lot of insight on how the NWA was during that period when WWF was working on pulling talent. Yeah, I should probably check out Gary Hart's book. I think that'd be an awesome read. But yeah, I think a lot of people are, we look at wrestling today and, the Monday Night Wars and how McMahon and Bischoff were going back and forth and, the WWF and the ratings and WCW and the ratings and all that. But really that territory expansion in the early 80s, that was some cutthroat shit. That was some serious stuff. Ray says, yeah, it's a good time to write and think. I mean, that's really all we have, right, Ray's? I mean, Ray's is involved with Santino Brothers, and really she wrestles all over Southern California. If I start listing all the titles that Ray's has, we'll be here for about 30 minutes. But what Ray's does very well is that she's a thinker, and she's educated, so she looks at things very differently. But what I'm trying to say is at this point in time, when there's nothing to execute on, because there just isn't, there's no way to execute. Now's the time to strategize. Now is the time to plan. We're trying to flatten the curve, so to speak, and in flattening the curve, we got to make sure that everyone is being safe, and that includes the wrestlers who put their lives on the line every week. They have to take care of themselves. So in order to do that, there isn't going to be very many matches, or should be any matches. But now's the time to reflect and to think and to figure out how to grow not only a brand, but a wrestler, a brand themselves. So Ray's just said it best. Get prepared and stay prepared. I mean, you can't argue with that. And that's why I really like Ray. She's a smart cookie. And I see Kevin Frazier joined us on the Instagram, and so did Big Al. And I want to say hello to everyone. And getting back to some of your comments over here on the YouTube page, DKM says he's here to see some wrestling. Tonight you're going to see some wrestling for sure. And again, we've been talking about what did Billy Corgan acquire when he bought the NWA from Bruce Tharpe. And some people said it was the Paul Boesch library that he was purchasing. Some people thought it was just the 3 letters. Others, have all kinds of conspiracy theories. I do believe there's some sort of agreement with Paul Boesch's widow to use the library in some capacity, but I'm sure there's a pay-to-play type scenario going on there. Anyways, now's the perfect time to have access to it. I've heard that the WWE might be taking a sabbatical from live events because, they're just running shows in their performance center. And again, they're still taking a risk. People's healths are at stake. And now is not the time to, put people in jeopardy. And especially with somebody like the WWE who's got a film library that's almost infinite. Now's the time to start showing some of the old stuff. Why not? Len says, it's good to give some people a break too. Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm a fan of baseball. I love baseball. You guys know me, you know that. Angel Magnet right here. I'm a big fan of the Angels baseball. And baseball season was supposed to start last week. In fact, I drove past Angel Stadium, sadly, last Sunday, and looked sad as I passed it because I was supposed to be a home opener game for the Angels. The benefit of the season being delayed is that everyone's going to get healthy. All these guys who were hurt are now going to get healthy. In the same way you could say professional wrestling, there's a lot of people who've had aggravated injuries, nagging injuries. This is the time to get healed up, to get right, to get mentally focused. And when we're allowed to gather again at wrestling venues across the country, now is the time for wrestling to take its first step and make that big step, big splash, because there's going to be an audience for it. People are tired of sitting at their homes. Now's the time to try to capture that audience. I know Ray's works with WPW out here in Southern California, and they've been doing rerunning shows on Twitch with added commentary and extra things. I think this is all great thinking. I think the NWA ultimately will benefit from this, but it certainly hurts right now. Len says, I'll send you a Kindle copy if you want. It's very hard to get a physical one. Len, if you could do that, that'd be awesome. I'd appreciate it. Lamb says, some old NWA Championship Wrestling from Hollywood stuff could be uploaded again soon. This will be the last actual Championship Wrestling from Hollywood episodes from the last tapings. Lamb, funny you should bring that up, because David Marquez posted recently on a Facebook page, and we're supposed to have Dave Marquez come in for an interview. Well, not come in, but not actually come in, because we're social distancing, but he's supposed to spend some time with me probably sometime this week. It was supposed to be yesterday, but some family business kind of took over. Didn't get an opportunity to do it, but he mentioned that his show, instead of going on hiatus, they're going to kind of pull up some episodes from, recent episodes. We're not talking stuff from the vault, but if anybody had vault stuff that would be worthwhile putting on TV, it's Marquez. I mean, gosh, you guys don't understand how much he has in his library. I mean, matches with American Dragon, Bryan Danielson, matches with TJ Perkins, Rocky Romero, Scrap Iron Adam Pearce, Christian Cage, Jeff Jarrett. I mean, he's got some NWA title matches from the past that would be excellent to see. Stuff I'd love to see. And all that stuff I really think would be pretty cool. But I know that there's, it's got to make dollars and cents, and right now it doesn't make dollars or cents, so that won't happen. But I know they will be, they'll be pulling videos from recent videos probably within the last year, so expect to see a lot more Bateman and more Royce Isaacs, both of whom have moved on from the NWA. Speaking of Royce Isaacs, if you guys would like to check it out, I should have an interview up with Royce probably Thursday at the latest. We did it last week, and it just had some trouble getting that formatted and ready to go. But probably on Thursday, I'll have an interview with Royce Isaacs right here on the YouTube channel. And for you guys watching on Instagram, that's TheAllianceBlog, youtube.com/TheAllianceBlog. Ray's wanted to remind me that Gary Yap has released old Epic War stuff. And there's a lot of great stuff in there, too. If you guys are familiar with indie wrestling in the late 2000s, we're talking about guys like Jack Evans, Davey Richards, Super Dragon, B-Boy, Scott Lost, Joey Ryan. Joey Ryan, when he was the technical wizard, not the famous stick wrestler. I know a lot of you guys, I just lost my lights. A lot of you guys tend to hate on what Joey Ryan does these days, and I understand it's not for everyone, but Joey was quite the accomplished wrestler prior to doing the whole dick flip thing. So if you guys want to check that out, Rays, do you happen to have a link of that? Can you leave me a comment here, and I'll tell everyone here how to find that. And then going back for more comments, the Woodland Goblin says, I'm surprised that the NWA hasn't showed the last couple of matches from the last tapings, and Camille talking. They had plenty of time to edit the show. Woodland, I think the problem is that show is directly going to lead into the Crockett Cup, and the idea is that if the Crockett Cup is going to happen, that you could just put that show right up, and you're all set. You're all ready for the lead into the Crockett Cup. I think that's the only reason why they haven't released it yet. Yes, there's been plenty of time for editing. I know the NWA has been planning and trying to figure out what the next move is going to be. But of course, everybody is just trying to figure out what to do next. And I think that's why they haven't released that footage yet. Big Al says, Royce moved on from NWA. I'm that behind on Power. No, Big Al, Royce has moved on from Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. He's still very much a member of the NWA, very much active in the NWA, and in the interview we talk about that. I hope you'll check it out. Hope you guys will check it out. Like I said, it should probably be up tomorrow or Thursday at the latest. more of your comments. Terry McDermott. Terry, by the way, it was Terry reached out to me. It was good talking to you. Glad you enjoy the show. Glad you check it out. He wished that he could get the wrestling magazines at the grocery store. That would come in handy now. Yeah, those after mags, right? I mean, I was one of those kids that, I was very excited to go to Ralph's, which is Kroger's across the country, and they would have the PWI. And, I didn't buy just the PWI Top 500. I was buying pretty much every month. And, it's funny. You think about the stories, right? There was this guy. We used to go to a swap meet in Cypress, California. This swap meet where this old guy had lots of nostalgia, lots of memorabilia. And one of the things he had were these wrestling magazines. Now, I was a little kid, and I knew Freddie Blassie as the manager for Greg the Hammer Valentine, or the manager for, I guess he managed the Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov. Anyways, here you see this black and white magazine, but they had the red ink on the cover, and it was Freddie Blassie, and Freddie Blassie was bleeding like a pig. Like, he was just crimson mask and everything, and that was it was like some sort of wrestling magazine that I guess covered Southern California. And for those of you guys who don't know, Fred Blassie was a hated heel in California for a long, long time. Wrestled on the East Coast for a bit, came back to the California as a babyface, and his matches with John Tolos were just bloody battles, and there was so much, again, blood. It was so much. Just seeing these magazines, and I wish I would have bought those things back when I was a kid. Didn't think about it, and now, of course, you can't find those things. So, I feel you on those wrestling magazines. It would be cool just to be able to go into a store and pick one up, but hell, you can't even get into the store these days. So I just want to jump back and forth between messages. We've got messages on Instagram. Ray's said she tweeted it to me. Last uploaded was 2 days ago. So, guys, if you're following either the Alliance blog or First to Third on Twitter, I will retweet on both accounts what Ray said for Gary Yap. If you guys don't know Gary Yap, he had this very, very big... he had this grand plan to bring an ultimate, like, just this amazing wrestling promotion to Southern California. He used all the top stars. It was kind of like an all-star wrestling promotion. It predates Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, if you guys are familiar with that. Predates Ring of Honor. And the idea was to try to create something very special out here in Southern California. And it didn't work out in the end, but during its heyday, I mean, it again featured matches with CM Punk. It featured matches with Scrap Iron Adam Pearce, Samoa Joe, Bryan Danielson. I mean, these were dream matches at the time, and they were happening every week. They even did a studio show that Dave Marquez helped produce, and it was a lot of fun. If you guys are just looking for something to watch, some wrestling to watch, you might want to check it out. And like I said, I'll post more about that. I'm going to go back to the comments. Kevin, my podcasting partner, Kevin Douglas, says he really enjoyed the cinema-style matches at WrestleMania. It puts a lot of focus on storytelling in its early stages, but there's potential in these types of situations for promotions with studios. Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong, Kev, but you got to also be careful, too, because this COVID-19 is, I mean, I put a lot of stock into it. I have family members who have, I can't say the word, have compromised immunities, and I know from my personal standpoint, and I respect, gosh, why am I having a brain fart? Roman Reigns quite a bit for taking a stand of not wrestling, because he had to play it safe for him, for his family. If some of my family members got compromised, they could die. And so I know, like, entertainment is important. We all want to see the best wrestling we can see, but we also have to play it safe. And still NWA says, I grew up on the Aftermags. They made regions I couldn't see on TV, so mysterious and fun. I miss those rankings at the back. You know, for a short time, I can't believe we're going to say this, DKM, Jaden, and I were submitting rankings on behalf of the National Wrestling Alliance to the Aftermags, and they were publishing them. that was back in the heyday of our podcast here, but they would publish our rankings, and that was pretty cool. Frank Corda hooked that up. But I mean, we did legitimate rankings. We didn't play favorites. We literally took wins and losses and measured against who were the best opponents. And Kevin Fraser says less hard camera and focusing more on the roaming cameras. I think you went back to the cinema stuff. Yeah, I agree, man. I agree. It could be fun, but we also have to play it very careful. Len says, I miss the magazines. Yeah, I guess we all do. Who was that? Who was in the Hangman? I know I could look it up, but I figured you would know. Well, it was Adam Pearce, Brent Albright, and I don't know the third guy. I can't think of his name. Jason Newsom says, the NWA show today is Paul Boesch Houston show with Andre the Giant and Harley Race. Yeah, and that'll be fun. And Len says Hulk Hogan too. I don't know what that means. And then DCam says, no, Kevin is wrong. Kevin, did you hear that? DCam says you're wrong again. But yeah, look, wrestling is very much a potpourri of entertainment, right? Like, you can get whatever you want. If you want comedy in your wrestling, there is a channel for that. There's a YouTube channel for that. There's places for that. If you want more serious wrestling, you could find that as well. If you want more stiff and strong style wrestling, you could find that. If you want more fantasy style wrestling, you could find that. There's ultimately a flavor for every brand of wrestling, and all you have to do is look for it. And that's one of the cool things about this absent of new content, is you can catch up on some of the things you might have missed. And like I said, Ray's pointed out the Gary Yap library for the Epic Pro Wrestling, and I'm certainly going to start checking some of those out. Lens, oh yes, you're right. Freddie did manage Hulk when he first came into the WWE, but not the second time. In fact, somewhere I have that image stuck in my brain of Hogan with the atom bomb shaved into his chest, the mushroom cloud. That was always funny. DCam says his purpose is to tell Kevin he's wrong. And Chris, Big Chris Dog, says he wants some good lucha in the NWA. It's funny because I was talking to Royce Isaacs, not to name drop, but we were talking about his growth in professional wrestling, and he did a lot of work with the Santino brothers. In fact, he spent a lot of time with former NWA tag team champions Los Luchas, and he even suggested Los Luchas would be a great addition to the current NWA, and I can't disagree. Los Luchas are so underrated in terms of performing and in terms of ability, and they had some great matches with Carl Anderson and Joey Ryan, but they could have good matches with everybody, and I really think that they would be an excellent addition to the National Wrestling Alliance, and they're former tag team champions. I always like it when you can bring in a former tag champion into a show, or former champion in any capacity. I mean, that's why I was so excited about Jack Stane. I'm super excited to see Jack Stane. I can't wait for that match to actually happen. I know it's already been taped, but I want to see Jack Stane in the NWA, and I want to see him make an impact. So, back to Paul Boesch tonight. Again, we're going to have the showcase from the Houston Library. I think that's really cool. That's the other thing, and Ray's just pointed out, also with Los Luchas, they've been so instrumental in helping out a younger crowd of wrestlers. And that's important too. When you talk about the value of a professional wrestler, the trainers are really, the unsung heroes of professional wrestling. We see a lot of, especially where Ray's is associated with Santino Brothers, a lot of their rookies come up to do awesome things. If you guys have heard of Jake Atlas, who just debuted in NXT, he came from the Santino Brothers. You talk about Brody King from Ring of Honor, a member of the Santino Brothers. You talk about MLW's Douglas James, again, from Santino Brothers. That school has produced a lot of great talent. Um, Bateman, someone who I really appreciate and enjoy watching, who's in Ring of Honor now, but was a member of Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. He kind of reinvented himself with the Santino brothers. I think Reyes would agree with me on that. Reyes really came into her own while being with the Santino brothers. This isn't an infomercial for the Santino brothers, but you could check out their YouTube channel too for studio style wrestling that Reyes has been involved with, not only in the ring but outside the ring as well. Lamb says we need more tag teams in the NWA in general, right? I think we could all agree with that. And Kevin, I don't know if he's still on the chat or not, but I'd rather see anybody wrestle right now than Ricky and Robert. I'm tired of watching those guys. And Los Luchas aren't in their 60s. I mean, they've been around for a while, but they're still considered young men by the NWA standards. Yeah, I think Trevor Murdoch would call them young boys because they're not in their 40s yet. Len says Bill Burns has been posting old NWA TNA matches on YouTube lately in their entirety. There's a guy, Mike Digital on Twitter, and I know I'm butchering his Twitter handle, but he's been posting matches from YouTube, not YouTube, but downloadable AVI files that are the first year of TNA. So far, he's posted, I think the first 20 matches, 20 shows. Ken Shamrock winning the title, introduction of Ron Killings, and, R-Truth, and all that stuff. So, AJ Styles... Again, there's content to be consumed, my friends. There's a lot of good stuff out there, and I hope you guys take advantage of this time. If you are a fan of professional wrestling, there is no shortage of wrestling. And, make sure you check out Bill Barron's channel, because if he's putting out TNA stuff, I'm going to go check that stuff out. Len says maybe that's where he saw it. Okay, Len, see, now I'm putting up Bill Barron's, and he's not the one putting it up. Lamb says 4 minutes of heat debut on Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. I was very impressed. Could fit in the NWA. I hope so, man. I really kind of hope that the NWA looks at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood as kind of like a feeder system. You guys, if you listen to the conversation, watch the video with Royce Isaacs, he mentioned that his opportunity came to work for the NWA based on the match that he had with Nick Aldis. And had it not been for that opportunity, he probably wouldn't be wrestling with the NWA right now. So, Len says MLW is worth checking out. Absolutely. And if you go watch MLW, I mean, they've got guys like Hammerstone and, again, the aforementioned Douglas James. Not only that, but Jacob Fatu has been very impressive. I don't really care for the Sheik. Sorry, Rays. I don't care for that guy at all. But, I mean, he has created opportunities for a lot of talent to showcase their skills. So I guess you got to tip the old hat to that. But anyway. And Lem's taking off. He's got to go back to work. I think Bill might have had shared it on Facebook is where I've seen it. Okay. Well, anyways, that's pretty cool. I think I missed a message here. I would like to see Mike Jackson make a guest appearance. Are you talking about Mike Jackson like Action Jackson, Terry? Royce Isaac versus Nick Aldis was 2 years ago before Isaacs had his double champ run in Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. Right, Lamb. Things don't happen overnight in pro wrestling. Everything takes time. But again, when did Royce make his debut in championship? In the NWA? It was at the Crockett Cup last year, which was last April. Which then it wasn't that too long ago from his match with Nick Aldis. Chris says, "What did you think of America's Most Wanted NWA run?" I thought AMW was great. I thought they did a great job. They were a fun babyface tag team. Wildcat Chris Harris and the Cowboy James Storm. And they were a lot of fun. Those were NWA guys working in Impact. You have to remember, Impact TNA initially was, some handful of WCW guys and a bunch of new faces. AJ Styles, he wasn't established in WCW. I mean, he wasn't, I wouldn't call him a name by any stretch of the imagination, but he had opportunities, Jerry Lynn, Chris Daniels, none of these guys were household names before TNA. It kind of happened after. Yeah, Terry, I'd be cool with that. I mean, like, the NWA has done a lot of showcasing some of the some older names in professional wrestling, and there's nothing wrong with that. If they could still go and they could still put on a decent match, I have no problem with that. I don't want to dictate weeks of television for guys who are past their prime, but I wouldn't mind seeing a match with older guys in it from time to time. You guys are so awesome. I almost didn't even do the show today because it just a string of bad luck. A couple things didn't go my way, and I was like, maybe we'll just do it another time. But you guys always come in here and pick me up, and I love you for it. Makes my whole day. So thank you guys. But we're going to wrap it up here. We've been on for a good 40 minutes. Well, now you guys are still talking. Okay. James Storm was in WCW too. You just never seen him. Yeah, I think I saw footage of him in WCW. I think that was also around the same time that, everybody's favorite Colorado kid, Mike Rapata. I think that was around the same time. Craig says, do you happen to know if Mustang Mike and Barrett Brown are in still possession of the physical NWA North American and NWA World Championship? Craig, you're a funny guy. No. All of the NWA intellectual properties were returned to them, including the North American title and the World Junior Heavyweight title. Although it wasn't Barrett Brown's fault, there was an issue with the title that got resolved eventually, and Dave Lagana's mentioned this a couple of times. You know who still has an NWA title that hasn't been returned? The Sheik. But, yeah, no, DKM, I said, Brown wasn't the problem. Brown was complicit. He didn't do anything wrong. Not complicit, excuse me, wrong terminology. Brown did nothing wrong. Barrett Brown is a good guy, and I actually hope that the NWA will open their peepers to him once again and bring him back to the NWA. I think that would be great. Would you bring in Hernandez of LAX? Chris, say that again, because I don't think I understand. Would you bring in Hernandez of LAX? Game he won NWA gold. Oh, yeah, I know he might be trouble to work with. That's what I've heard of, Super Mex. But Hernandez I thought he was great, and, putting him and Homicide together again would be fun. Although I like Kingston and Homicide. But then again, I'd like to see Kingston on a solo run, too. I think Kingston, right now, I don't think there's many guys. If I'm going to rate promos right now, I'm going to say right now nobody is better than Nick Aldis in the NWA. And number 2, I'm going to say Eli Drake. And then number 3, I'm going to say, I said Homicide, Kingston. Eddie Kingston cuts an amazing promo. He makes me want to see a match. He talked about the Dawsons, and it made me want to see a match. Yes. So if you want to bring in Hernandez, yeah, I think Hernandez would be fine. I don't know where he kind of fits in, but, I mean, he's a guy who can wrestle reasonably well. He's a big dude. I know his promos aren't the best, but maybe you don't need someone to cut a promo for him. Or maybe you hire someone to be his promo guy. I'm not sure. Another guy I was thinking about lately was Apollo, the North American champion who lost to the Sheik. Oh, why do we keep talking about the Sheik? Jesus. I don't want to talk about the Sheik anymore. Apollo was a guy who I don't know why they didn't do more with him. I think maybe because of his personal lifestyle choices or some bad decisions. But he was another guy that I'd like to see back in the NWA. He was a big dude. He could wrestle well, and I always thought he was pretty good. Len says, I actually saw on his shelf the other day. You saw the... we're not talking about that. Hernandez was an Impact, so yeah. I mean... It wouldn't surprise me if he showed up in the NWA, but I wouldn't be mad if he showed up in the NWA. Lamb says, well, lately in Impact. Well, if he's working Impact, then he can stay in Impact. Ray's is laughing. The Sheik doesn't like me, Ray's. Don't mention you even know me around him. Craig says, why did the NWA book Brown's match at NWA 70th anniversary with Laredo Kid? Why didn't they? Because Craig, the honest answer is because they don't recognize the NWA World Junior Heavyweight title right now. That title became dormant when the purchase was concluded from Lightning One from International Wrestling Corporation, and once that sale was complete, the NWA took inventory of their assets, meaning they took the possession of the junior heavyweight title, the North American title, the national title, the tag titles, and even the women's championship, and then basically froze everything. They wanted to work with Jazz, so Jazz was reinstated as women's champion. They wanted to work with Tim Storm. Obviously, they wanted to work with Tim Storm, so the title was reactivated. The national title still lays dormant. The North American title they brought back. Excuse me, I had that backwards. The North American title stays dormant. They didn't want to work with the prior national champion, so they created a new national title and had a tournament to crown a new national champion. Not a tournament, but a match at the 70th anniversary to crown a new champion. They didn't want to work with the tag champions, the former tag champions, so they crowned new tag champions. You can't blame a company for wanting to do what they think is best for them and not wanting to work with certain individuals. If there was, obviously there was some personnel issues between the people who aren't in the NWA and the people who are. So I don't know what to tell you. Big Al says he wants to see Chance Prophet back in NWA 2020. I mean, we saw Chance Prophet in Ring Warriors, and I wouldn't mind seeing him back in the NWA. I always liked Chance. Chance is a 2-time NWA national champion, held the NWA Dog title when Dog was affiliated with the NWA. And honestly, I don't think he ever realized his potential with the NWA. And I think they could have gotten more mileage out of him. But, of course, they had to do something to get that mileage. Okay. Len says, I remember seeing on the 70th Blue Demon. I just saw that the other day when they replayed that. And I couldn't help but laugh because I ultimately think Blue Demon went into business for himself and just said, hey, I'm throwing it out there. I'm NWA Mexico. Give me a title shot. And I don't think anyone smartened him up to the circumstance of what was going on. I know Carmine was there at the show. I know David Marquez was producing. He might have thought this was just a new David Marquez production. But needless to say, I don't think Blue Demon will be getting that shot anytime soon. However, I would like to see it, honestly. I know Demon's getting older in age, but he still can go. He still wrestles quite regularly. And I wouldn't mind seeing Blue Demon get an opportunity against Nick Aldis for the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship. I think that'd be a great match. Len not only likes Chance, but he's also saying Damian Wayne as well. And yeah, Damian Wayne, Mr. Mid-Atlantic, the Mid-Atlantic badass, the kings of, was it KOS? I don't remember what KOS stood for, but it would be interesting to see Damian Wayne back, but again, some of the decisions that talent made prior to Billy Corgan acquiring the National Wrestling Alliance makes it difficult to work with some people. So I'm not saying that people aren't going to show up. I'm not saying that people are banned. I'm not saying that the NWA won't work with certain people, but I would like to. I'd like to see him back. And then Len says Blue Demon is doing great in the AAA. Yeah, he's a worker, guys. I mean, he was great as NWA World Champion. Before I had all the shortcomings I had this last week, I was planning on making this show centric on Blue Demon Jr., mostly because I saw the mask. The advertisement said my boss said I had to wear a mask to work, and I wore the Blue Demon mask. That made me laugh. So I thought we were going to talk about that. That was what I was originally planning, was to talk about Blue Demon Jr., but yeah. And then DCAM says they're talking about Muda, and I think that's in comparison of age to Blue Demon Jr. And yeah, I mean, again, Muda's a worker. He might not be as good as he was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, but again, I'd still like to see that match. I'd pay to see it. Ray says she's got to cut off, but you guys have a great day. I love this. Stay safe and sanitize. Ray's, wash your hands. Thanks for joining us, Rays. We're going to have to do an interview show sometime soon, too. Chris said, did they ever say why Phil Shatter never won the gold? Because he never beat Pierce. He never beat Blue Demon Jr. I mean, his time in the NWA was kind of short when he finally made it to the top tier. Phil Shatter, who goes by Jackson Riker now in NXT, was Gunner in Impact. The guy has a lot of talent, but never reached his full potential and still hasn't. And I'm not saying he couldn't, but he's not going to do it with NXT. Not now. DCAM says Lords of Chaos. That's right, Lords of Chaos. Fun fact, Blue Demon Jr. defeated Chavo Guerrero Jr. in the very first match on the very first episode of Lucha Underground. Yes, he did. Fun fact, Blue Demon Jr. wasn't the only guy under the Blue Demon Jr. mask in Lucha Underground. Bet you didn't know that. I was there. I know. I mean, I wasn't behind the scenes, but I was there. Lamb says the April Fool's by Adam. That was epic. He got me. I was like, oh, yeah. Oh, April 1st. Who looks at a calendar during quarantine, right? But hey, guys, that's it. I mean, we're running out of time. I want you to make sure you can tune into the Paul Boesch Houston Library show. It's going to be something special. I don't know if they're going to do any kind of introduction for it, but I think it's definitely going to be worth checking out. So, again, you guys have been awesome today. I needed this. I think you guys might have needed it too. So from the bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you for checking us out again here on the pre-party. And we are looking at doing some more interactive things coming up soon. Like I said, the Royce Isaac video should be up Thursday. If you haven't been to Spotify yet, or Anchor.fm, or Apple Music, or wherever you go to listen to podcasts, the Alliance Blog recently posted from the Vault interview with Bill Behrens that you can actually check out on the link down below here. I have a link for you. If you're just looking to listen to some more content, and Bill goes in great detail. He recently, at the time, had left the NWA and talked a lot about the NWA and how it helped to build his brand, and how the NWA could be useful for the International Wrestling Company. Didn't come to fruition. And then Len and I are talking more and more about Zoom, so we'll be talking about that. And Lam, I am washing my hands. And Terry, thank you for checking us out. So again, we're going to wrap it up, guys, but I do appreciate you checking us out. This is so much fun. We'll do it every week. And same time next week, 2:05 Pacific, 5:05 Eastern. We will talk NWA and professional wrestling. And until next time, I'll see you at the matches. Bye, friends. Thank you, guys. If I can ever turn this off. Nope, not going to happen today. Oh, great. Bye. Will this ever end? I don't know. Oh, come on. There it is. Bye, guys.